As a man, finding a good pair of pants can feel impossible. Jack Archer's Jet Setter Tech Pants make it easy. Made with their top-tier fabric from Japan that resists wrinkles, stains, and keeps you comfortable all day. They're perfect for all-day office wear, long flights, nights out, and even around a golf. Seriously, these might be the only pants you'll ever need. Style them with the Jet Setter T Legacy button-down shirt or the buttery Legacy polo sweater, and you got timeless staples to meet your everyday wardrobe needs. Jack Archer is just better. For a limited time, get 15% off using the code GETJACK at jackarcher.com. Again, that's promo code GETJACK at jackarcher.com for 15% off your entire order.
Ready to level up? Chumba Casino is your playbook to fun. It's free to play with no purchase necessary. Enjoy hundreds of online social games like blackjack, slots, and solitaire. Anytime, anywhere with fresh releases every week. Whether you're at home or on the go, let Chumba Casino bring the excitement to you. Plus, get free daily login bonuses and a free welcome bonus. Join now for your chance to redeem some serious prizes. Play Chumba Casino today. No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. 21 plus. TNCs apply.
I don't know how to tell you this, but you're in a time machine.
And this is the year 2015?
October 21st, 2015.
Talk is Jericho, baby. Talk is Jericho. Talk is Jericho, mama. Talk is me.
All right, welcome to Talk is Jericho. It's the pot of thunder and rock and roll, and here we go with the highly anticipated Duff McKagan joke of the week.
Chris Jericho, Duff McKagan calling you from Buenos Aires. I am getting over my sickness, but I hope you're doing well. I'm getting better. I hope everybody out there is doing well. Listen, a group of scientists finally came up with a number of how many drummer jokes there is. The number is it's a zillion. Thank you. A zillion. It's a zillion. Thank you, bye.
Zildjian. That's a real musician's joke. I sent that to Charlie Benanti and Mike Portner, who are drummers, and they got it because Zildjian is a very famous type of cymbal, like a cymbal that you hit on a drum set. So there you go, a little bit of drummer humor. And I'm glad Duff is feeling better. We'll take a healthy Duff over a funny one, although I think that's actually pretty funny. So I'm glad Duff is getting healthy and still sending ridiculous jokes as the Guns N' Roses tour is rolling through South America. And thanks for everyone for supporting Crazy Train. We're rolling up the charts on the SMR rock charts. Our tribute to Ozzy just became our 11th top 40 single, cracked the top 40 at 38 with a bullet. So 11 top 40 singles. It's so insane. So thank you so much. And we appreciate you guys listening and whoever's playing it on the radio and streaming it. And there's some more Fozzy news coming soon. And other big news, Chris Jericho's Rock and Wrestling Rager at Sea embarks on the 7th cruise of the 7th cruise next year. We're setting sail November 7th to the 11th, Miami to the Bahamas and back. Jeff Hardy, Soraya, the Great Muda are joining us. Nick Nemeth, Busted Open, Dave LaGreca, Bully Ray from Pro Wrestling Nation, Quarantine, Fozzy, Downstate, the Iron Maidens, the Guardians of the Jukebox, the Violent Hour, the Killer Dwarfs, the Peroxide, Jeff Hardy's band is coming to rock with us. Live podcast, of course, Talk is Jericho. Soraya doing her Rule Breakers pod. Chris Van Vliet will be there doing his Insight show. Dave Schrader, all kinds of paranormal fun. And our master of mirth, Brad Williams, has lined up some great comedians, including April Macy, JB Ball, Marcus Monroe. And that's just the beginning. We've got plenty more coming. We got plenty more names to announce. So don't you worry and don't you dare miss it. Sign up now for the pre-sale at ChrisJerichoCruise.com, and the public on sale starts October 28th. Can't wait to see you guys on the ship. And all right, today we're celebrating Back to the Future Day, which was actually earlier this week, October 21st to be exact. But that means Brad Gilmore, our resident Back to the Future expert, returns to the show to talk all about one of the most ambitious sequels ever made. We're taking a deep dive into Back to the Future Part 2. We're talking flying DeLoreans, hoverboards, self-lacing Nikes, and that wild alternate 1985 that turned Biff Tannen into an evil casino mogul. Brian and I break down how they shot the same scenes from the first movie all over again with new angles, how Michael J. Fox played 3 characters in one scene, how Steven Spielberg's Industrial Light and Magic had to invent a brand new camera system just to pull it off. We'll get into the drama with Crispin Glover, of course, the replacement of Jennifer Parker, Flea from the Chili Peppers popping up as Marty's boss, and the original script that almost sent Marty to the Vietnam era, and why Tom Wilson as Biff should have been nominated for an Oscar after playing 3, 4, 5 roles in this movie. Killer trivia about the set rebuild, stunt injuries, and once again, the real story behind old Biff's mysterious disappearance, time travel, movie magic, and a ton of great Back to the Future fun and stories with Brad Gilmore, starting right here on Talk is Jericho. Pods? Where we're going, we don't need pods! With us back again, and I think we've decided that you're going to be kind of a semi-regular guest because you're always awesome. Brad Gilmore is here, obviously known as the expert about Back to the Future and all of its sequels and musicals, et cetera, et cetera. So we just had Brad on for the 40th anniversary of the original. And we spoke about Back to the Future 2, but I watched it last week and I was like, man, we got to talk about this movie because it is unique. There's no other movie like it. In a lot of ways, it's batshit crazy. And in a lot of ways, it's very cringe as well, Brad.
There's a few. First off, thanks for having me back on the show. I think it's my 4th time. I'm 1 time away from the 5-timers club, right? So I can stand there with Steve Martin in my jacket on the neck.
What was the 4th one besides the Back to the Futures?
So I did the James Bond one with you.
Right. Okay, so we'll find another pop culture icon for the next one. But yeah, one more and you joined Paul Stanley, Bruce Dickinson, Charlie Benanti. You got a whole
company. I'm not mad about it, but you're right. This movie is so strange in a lot of ways because Back to the Future Part 2 does something that one thing about a sequel is you want to make the same movie again for the audience. Like that's what people want from a sequel. You want to see the same characters in a similar format, but a little bit different. They do that. But what's so interesting about it is I don't know another movie sequel that goes back into the first movie and you get to see that movie from a completely different angle and just kind of be able to give us that alternate 1985 and a vision of the future that isn't so grim in 2015. But yeah, going back into the first movie, that's a really inspired idea.
It's so wacky too, though, with all the guys playing the multiple characters. I mean, and we'll get into that. But, you know, Michael J. Fox is playing multiple characters. And then I think Thomas Wilson definitely have to delve into this. He might have even been like Oscar worthy for his performances because I think he's playing 4 characters in this. I feel that it's a little bit underrated because it's under the shadow of Back to the Future, which is a super creative movie, pretty flawless. And 2 is not that, but it's almost like a Godfather 2 in that in some ways it might almost be better because there's, like you said, there is no other movie like either one of those. But the fact this is on top of the first one makes it even that more genius in a lot of ways.
Well, what's strange about this movie, and I agree with you, I feel like when you look at trilogies, if we go to Star Wars and you think about there's New Hope and then Empire Strikes Back, you could make the argument it's better than A New Hope. And in some ways, it's a lot darker and it takes the characters down a darker path, you know?
Right.
And in this movie, it's kind of a dark film. You're talking about Marty's dad is murdered. His mom marries a man for money and gets all this in plastic surgery and enhancements. The school is shut down. His house is now like in the, you know, got bars on the window because it's burglarized so much.
The ghetto, yeah.
His principal is about to shoot him in the head for stealing his newspaper. I mean, it is a very over the top movie when they go about it, coming off of Back to the Future 1, where the strangest thing about Back to the Future Part 1 is the fact that, you know, his mom has the hots for him, right? That's like the kind of the creep factor in a way of Back to the Future Part 1.
Yeah.
But when you go into 2, they're like, let's just let it go crazy. Let's just go balls to the wall with some of these ideas. And if you actually even read the original version of the movie, it's a script out there on the internet called Paradox, which kind of combines the Back to the Future 2 and 3 together. And that was their first draft. It's even crazier than this movie. There's like rocket launchers, there's helicopter chases, there's even more crazy stuff. But yeah, this one stands out. Honestly, too, Chris, I feel like Back to the Future 2 has the more iconic memorabilia from the Back to the Future trilogy because you have the flying DeLorean, you have the almanac, you have the Pepsi Perfect, you have the hoverboard, you have the self-fitting clothes, you have the Nike Air Mags. There's so many things from Back to the Future Part 2 that when you think of this trilogy, you think of those things first.
Jaws 10 or whatever it is.
Jaws 19.
Jaws 19.
This time it's really personal.
Hey, quickly, before we get into this, we talked last time, and then I followed up with you with a text. We talked about how Back to the Future is a flawless script.
Yes.
I did find something that did stand out that I brought to your attention, and that's when Marty shows up at Doc's house to show him the videotape of Doc getting shot, right?
Yes. A portable television studio.
Yeah. And he hooks it into the back of Doc's TV. And I was like, what kind of a TV in 1955 would have the right plugins that you could plug in a VCR? So that was kind of what we were saying, is that that's no way that's even possible. We delved into it a bit. Apparently there is a way it could be possible, but we haven't really figured that out for sure yet.
There's an adapter or something that you could have done, and maybe Doc Brown figures it out in 55, but I actually think it's a great catch. And when you said it to me, I was like, wait a minute.
Yeah.
And then I immediately had to go text my other Back to the Future people like, hey, this is what Chris Jericho said. I think he might be right. I think he's right. Maybe one day I can ask Bob Gale.
And this is one of my superpowers, Brad, because I found out the same thing. I was watching an episode of Big Bang Theory, where they said that in Raiders of the Lost Ark, Indiana Jones doesn't even have to be in it, and everything would happen the same way. That's a theory that they had. And I was like watching it going, well, I guess you could say that. But there's one scene. Remember when Indy gets into the plane to go to Nepal, and as he gets on the plane, it's like the line. Well, in the back of the plane is Tot reading the newspaper and glances down. He's following Indy to get the medallion from Marion in Nepal. So had Indy not gone to Nepal, Tot would not have been able to follow him. So Big Bang Theory, you could suck it.
Incorrect. You needed Indy for that point in the movie, because then he gets the medallion burned into his hand.
Well, that's right. Yeah. And then that's how the whole movie progresses from there. But, So anyways, we've got our plot holes out of the way, but let's go back to 2. And you mentioned paradox. Another thing that we kind of discussed that I did some research about was there was another script that was originally submitted that would take place in the 60s for Back to the Future 2.
Yeah. They'd go back into the 60s. Lorraine was like a flower child.
Yeah.
Marty McFly gets arrested because he's a draft age and he's not serving in the Vietnam War. He tries to be a conscientious objector, and he has to figure out how to get out of there. And it's interesting because that 60s plot, I think, actually would have been a fun time to explore. And I think that there was even something in the movie that sets that up, because there's a poster in the alleyway in Hill Valley where Jennifer's passed out in 2015. We're talking about in the future. In part two, that says Surf Vietnam is like the advertisement. And so I always saw that and I go, I wonder if that's a callback to originally they were going to have him as a part of the Vietnam War. And Lorraine's, she's a hippie flower child. She's a protester of the war. And that's all covered in that paradox script, which is interesting too, because in the 2015 version in that script, they see Huey Lewis in the News, but it's a hologram band. It's not really Huey Lewis in the News performing, which is interesting because now you have like ABBA and Kiss. I think Kiss is about to do
their
hologram show. Yeah, and so they kind of predicted it.
A Dio hologram. I think there was a Tupac hologram.
Yeah.
And when you're saying 2015, you really mean the 1989 sequel that goes to
2015. Yeah, not the actual year 2015.
Right.
That's the year that they go into in 89.
Hey, football fans, picture this. You bet on your favorite player to score the first touchdown of the game, but his teammate scores instead. If this happens, BetMGM wants to give you another chance at the end zone. With BetMGM's second chance promotion, you'll get your stake back if your first touchdown scorer scores second instead. BetMGM, make it legendary. BetMGM and GameSense remind you to play responsibly. See BetMGM.com for terms. 21 plus to wager. Nevada only. Existing customer offer. Subject to eligibility requirements. Rewards pay back and unrestricted withdrawable funds. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. MGMResource.com/GameSense.
So let's go back to the beginning because the original idea for Back to the Future 1 was a standalone film.
Right.
They had no intentions of doing a sequel, correct?
Correct. In 1985, they didn't really think about franchises, I think, the way that we do today.
Yeah.
When you know that there's a new Marvel movie coming out, you already know there's going to be 3 or 4 sequels planned, and they're already cast, and the actors even signed multi-year, multi-film deals. I think Sam Jackson, when he signed on to be Nick Fury in the Avengers, signed like a 10-picture deal.
Right,
So
yeah.
they knew what was coming for them. But in 1985, that's not really what you did. There were a few movies that had sequels, like Superman comes to mind. They did Superman 1 and 2, and then all the way up to Superman 4, The Quest for Peace. But other than that, there weren't too many sequelized films. And again, you have James Bond that we've talked about before. Indiana Jones started up. But so Back to the Future in 85 was such a huge, massive hit, number one movie in the world the entire time, had an incredible run during the summer. And so it kind of seemed like, hey, we should do a second one of these, given that we made so much money from it. And so Bob Gale and Bob Zemeckis talked to everyone at Universal. They gave the green light on the sequel. And what Bob Gale said is, look, we can't do this movie without Michael J. Fox and Christopher Lloyd. If we have them, we can figure out a script for Back to the Future 2. And then they wanted to see who else they could get in the film. So Leah Thompson joined right on to reprise Lorraine. Tom Wilson, who I think, I agree with you, is like the Academy Award level performing GOAT of these movies.
Yeah.
He signs back on. Wasn't the same for Crispin Glover. Crispin Glover was the only one of the original cast that was a holdout from the previous movie. And that's why in the film, Bob Gale and the creators go, well, hey, what if we kill George? And what if George being dead in present day 85 is the reason all these things happen for Marty, where he has to go back? So it kind of worked to their advantage, even though they did recast the George McFly character.
And why was Crispin a holdout?
It's one of those things where it's conflicting stories. But if you want to listen to Bob Gale, he makes mention that Crispin just had some demands that were just kind of a little bit outrageous as not being one of the top billed stars of the film, especially where he was in his career at the time. And he said he told Crispin's agent, hey, go back to your client. I'm going to call you back in 2 weeks. Hopefully he's reconsidered and we can agree on the terms. And Crispin didn't agree. Crispin Glover has like a bit of a different account of it. He says it's more so like he didn't like how Back to the Future ended, the first movie, because he felt this movie shows, hey, if you stand up to the bully, it's not really about self-improvement. It's that, oh, you're going to have a nicer house and your wife's going to be thinner and you can buy your son a 4x4. It's like a more commercial ending. He thought it was a monetary ending. It was about money.
Yeah, but see, that's typical hippie bullshit, because I see it more like if you stand up to the bully, you gain the self-confidence to write the novel, which he was so worried no one can read my stories.
Yes.
He beats the bully. He shows his stories and he gets success. Okay, great. There's trappings of materialism, but he's also a much happier, more confident person. That's the message I always got from the end of that.
I agree with you. And to me, it's really not about the materialism. It's what you said. It's he stood up to his fear of rejection.
Yes.
With his stories, he was able to stand up for himself, and like being rejected by Lorraine, being rejected by the stories, being afraid of Biff and standing up to it. And all the other things are a happy byproduct of that self-confidence and that self-belief and going for your dreams. Because if you see earlier in the movie, Marty doesn't even want to send in his tape to the record company because he doesn't want to get rejected. And he learns through his dad, hey, let me go and pursue my dreams. And there's actually a part of the movie that didn't make it where he sends off the record to the record company.
The tape into the record company. Yeah.
Yeah.
I had read some stuff that Crispin wanted the same as Leah Thompson, money-wise.
Yeah.
And they weren't going to do that. So anyways, typical story. So what they did was then they decide to just make a model of Crispin Glover. They hire another actor, but it's with a Crispin Glover face.
Yeah.
Stick him upside down. He's attraction.
Yeah. So what it was is in the first movie, obviously Crispin plays himself older in 1985, and then they go back to 55 and he's his younger version. So to do that, they had to do all the prosthetic casting. So there was a mask done of Crispin Glover with, the way that they would do those castings back in the day with the porcelain or what have you.
Yeah.
And they still had that when they went to the sequel. So they're like, oh, we have his mask. We have his face shape. Let's just do prosthetics on this new actor. And the new actor's name is Jeffrey Weissman, who was put in an unenviable position.
Totally.
Because Crispin's portrayal as George McFly is so specific to Crispin Glover. The line deliveries, the movements, the laugh, the way he portrayed that character, it's so recognizable that Jeffrey Weissman was kind of put in a position where he couldn't win. But you're right. That's why they came up with this idea. We'll give him the ortho Lev. where he's going to be hung upside down. It's this futuristic invention to help straighten his back out because he threw it out on the golf course. But it was anything to disorient. We don't want you to know that it's not Crispin Glover.
Right,
So we want to
right.
disorient your vision to just hearing it and seeing him as old man. Even if you see some of the shots from 1985 when Marty goes back and at the end of the movie in 2 and 3, you see he's wearing big aviator shades. They're shooting him from far away. He's not really in front of frame. So they were doing everything they could to make you think that it was actually Crispin Glover. And for a long time, I did. I did not know that wasn't Crispin Glover as a kid. Yeah. You just assume it's the same person. It's almost the Elizabeth Shue effect for me. Like, I didn't really realize Claudia Wells was the original Jennifer Parker, and then it changes. But now, obviously, as an adult, you recognize them. But they did a good job of. Did you know that it wasn't Crispin?
I didn't know it wasn't Crispin, but I knew right away that it was Elizabeth Shue because I was a huge fan of Karate Kid. Mm-hmm. Honestly, I had a big crush on Elizabeth Shue. And I remember thinking, like, if I could just get a girlfriend that was like whatever her name was in Karate Kid, was like,
Allie, I think, or
yeah. And then she, of course, adventures in babysitting, which is an all-time classic as well. So as soon as I saw her, and also too, it's a bad wig. You can tell it's just a shitty, like, okay, just put this on, and it's kind of like. Nobody would get their hair styled that way, like curls that kind of go into nowhere. So I knew that it wasn't her right off the gate. And I didn't know it wasn't Crispin Glover. But like you said, his part is so small, I don't think it really resonated with me anyways.
I think that if you got Crispin in this movie, I don't really know what would have been different because the movie's so not about the parents this time. It's about Marty, it's about Biff, it's about the effects of time travel like the first one is. Yeah. But it's more of a Marty-centered story. They gave him that character arc. He doesn't like being called chicken. We know that he now gets into an accident with a Rolls Royce, and that's why he can't play the guitar anymore. He's kind of given up on himself. So it's a redemption arc for Marty this time around, whereas the first movie was all about really George.
Right. Well, just quickly, why was Elizabeth Shue cast in that role of Jennifer?
Yeah, so Claudia Wells was the original Jennifer Parker, who in 85, gorgeous knockout actress. Yeah. And they went back to her. Her mother had gotten ill at the time. And so she actually quit acting. She just quit show business altogether. And they asked her to return, and she said, I'm taking care of mom. I'm not going to be involved in this. And so they went to Elizabeth Shue, which was a great casting for them. I mean, 89, Elizabeth Shue's a big name. Yeah. Doesn't really have a big part in this movie. 90% of it, she's laid out either on a porch or in an alleyway.
They never wanted her in the film. It was one of those ones. And that's another thing about this that makes me laugh is it happens in wrestling all the time where they started this thing and they were like, oh, what are we going to do? We'll just forget about it. What do you mean forget about it? Just forget about it. She'll pass out in the alley and then we'll just move on to the next thing.
Yeah.
I think when they started going for 2, they realized we never wanted. It's like if they were going to write 2, they would have never had that last scene in 1.
Yeah, that's what Robert Zemeckis said. He said, if he would have had his druthers about it, he would have never had Jennifer in the car. They would have gone to a different adventure. But because of the way Back to the Future ended, that first one, even though it was supposed to be a joke, they fly off into the sunset and that's the end of the movie. We never hear about these characters again. It did seem like a logical place for them to pick up because everybody who watched that movie for the first time, like when I did was a kid, you want to go, what happens next? Now, I had the letters that said to be continued at the end when I saw it, but that's not how audiences saw it in 85.
Oh, Mandela effect. So in the original one, they did not have to be continued on the screen. Oh, okay.
No, it just went off and faded to black. But then in the home releases, when they knew they were going to do a sequel, they're like, well, we're going to tack on to be continued so that people know there's a new movie coming out. Again, Jennifer being in the car serves no real purpose to the story at all. But you do want to pick right up with why does Doc have Mr. Fusion? What's up with these glasses? He's got a translucent tie and a yellow raincoat. What happened? That something's got to be done about Marty's kids. And that's what we ended up getting.
What's up? It's Draymond Green. I'm back for my 14th NBA season, and my podcast, The Draymond Green Show, is back too. This season, I'm breaking down games, reacting to the biggest NBA stories, and sitting down with teammates, rivals, and culture shapers. And trust me, I'm not holding back, on the court or on the mic. 2 new episodes every week, new segments, big conversations, real basketball talk for the real hoop heads. Listen to and follow The Draymond Green Show wherever you get your podcasts. We're back, we're better, let's get it.
Hey, Ryan Reynolds here for Mint Mobile. You know, one of the perks about having 4 kids that you know about is actually getting a direct line to the big man up north. Mm-hmm. And this year, he wants you to know the best gift that you can give someone is the gift of Mint Mobile's unlimited wireless for $15 a month. Now, you don't even need to wrap it. Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month plan equivalent to $15 per month required. New customer offer for first 3 months only. Speed slow after 35 gigabytes if network's busy. Taxes and fees extra. See mintmobile.com.
Let's talk about the movie as it unfolds. Something's got to be done about the kids, and that's another thing that Zemeckis and Gale, Zemeckis obviously being the director, Bob Gale being the scriptwriter, both of them working together, was they were like, Marty's kids, like that's not the story we want to tell here. Let's just get the kid part over with and move on. So to me, this movie opens, it's almost a tale of two cities and maybe even three. I was watching this because it's been a while since I've seen it, but it's not that long, maybe 10 years or so. And I'm watching the first probably 20, 30 minutes. And I was going, this is cringeworthy. Really, really bad. Like I remember thinking, watching this going, if this was the whole movie, it would have been terrible. And the reason why I say that, Brad, and we can discuss this part, when Michael J. Fox plays his daughter, it's terrible. When he gets fired by Flea for the worst casting ever, like there's no reason for Flea to be the boss. And the Flea looks like he's younger than Marty and he's not a great actor. That was terrible. The whole thing with the upside down George McFly. Let's talk about this. How did you feel about the first 20, 25 minutes of this film?
Okay, so as a kid, when I saw the movie, it immediately captured my attention because it's like, whoa, this is what the future is going to be like. We're going to have hoverboards and flying cars and hologram technology where you go to the movies. So I think as a kid, there's something about it that you find real appealing. In subsequent viewings, it is the part of the sequel that I look for to get through the quickest. Like, can I get past 2015? Because now what's strange is, until 2015, these were movies still about the future, and now they're all movies about the past. And I don't know if it has the same romance in 2025 that these things actually didn't happen, although they did get a lot right in the 2015 version, like paying with things with your thumbprint, right? Picture-in-picture, home voice assistants like Alexa. That's true. We didn't get like hydrating a pizza or anything like that yet. That's
a good one. Or the sleeves that gets shorter or longer on a shirt.
The clothes that auto fit to whatever size you are, which is actually a phenomenal idea.
Self-lacing shoes.
Self-lacing shoes we didn't get. But, some things they actually did kind of come pretty close to actually making happen. So what I also liked about the future version is every movie about the future, like take Blade Runner or whatever you want to choose, it's always dark, grim, depressing. We're at the brink of a nuclear holocaust. The world is over. Terminator, right?
Yeah.
This one, at least it gave you like an upbeat version of, hey, this could be what it looks like. It's not a nuclear fallout. Not everything's crazy. You can go get a hover conversion from Goldie Wilson III if you want to. And what was cool about in the original Back to the Future, 55 to 85, you saw the natural progression of things where the movie theater then turns into a porn theater. The cafe turns into an aerobics class. And you kind of carried that over to 2015, which I enjoyed seeing, like the Texaco are all robots.
Crazy drunk drivers. Then he goes to crazy modern drivers or something.
Yeah. And then, but when it gets to the McFly household in Hilldale is where I do agree with you. Is where it feels a little bit Saturday Night Live-y in the sense of it feels like a sketch. Like we're looking at a future sketch, and Michael J. Fox is playing Marty McFly Jr., Marlene, and then his older self. And that part of the movie I don't love, but I understand like they're trying to set up that Marty isn't really doing good for himself, and that's why present Marty wants to get the almanac so he can be rich in the future. I think that's the purpose of that scene.
I also think, too, it's painting themselves out of the corner. They painted themselves into the corner with the end of number one. It's your kids, Marty. It's your kids. How do we get out of this hole that we've kind of dug into it? Any word on and this is a big freaking movie, any word on how or why Flea got cast as Marty's boss of all people?
Flea didn't, you know what? It still doesn't make sense to me. And I've talked to people about it before, and it seemed to be almost similar to like Huey Lewis or ZZ Top in some ways of like Red Hot Chili Peppers were big at the time.
They weren't that big. It was Mother's Milk. They hadn't even got to to
Californication or any of that stuff yet.
Yeah.
When did Blood Sugar Sex Magic come out? No, that was 90s. So yeah, so this
91.
is
91.
Yeah, this is right before that. So this is before they really took off. So it's a great question as to why Flea is in it. Now Flea's also in the end of Back to the Future 3 for a moment in present day, and he looks more. That part of Flea's more realistic. But Douglas J. Needles, I always try to also figure out like what was the setup, like what were they setting up? Because that's never really explained as far as. Right. Back to the Future 1, the script is so tight, everything pays off. This one, it's like, what was Marty like scanning in and why did he get fired? And they still have fax machines in 2015? That's incredible.
Well, fax machines was top technology in 1989. So
yeah, send me a facsimile so you can let me know I've been terminated. And they have them all throughout the house. So they really thought that's the way that it was going to get communicated. Flea, and it could have just been a stunt casting kind of thing because he hasn't done a whole lot of acting. I know he popped up in a Star Wars show a few years ago.
Yeah, and he was, of course, obviously in Big Lebowski, which is probably his biggest role. He was in, him and Anthony were in the surf movie Point Break.
Okay, yeah, they were in Point Break, yeah.
You know, they're LA guys, but I just Googled this, and AI Overview gives us the filmmakers needed someone with a specific look and Flea fit the bill. There wasn't a particular interesting story behind his casting. He was simply hired from the part. So there you go.
Okay, there you go. Yeah, Flea just shows up as Douglas J. Needles. And he does seem like there's something seriously wrong with him in the way that he's talking in that scene.
Yeah. And Marty gets fired. But like you said, then they get out of 15. And that's when, the movie takes a turn to where by the end of the movie, you kind of forget the opening 20 minutes or so. Let's talk about that because that's where the movie gets really, really good. And we have an interesting scene where nerdy Marty McFly Jr. is fighting with Griff, Biff's grandson.
Yeah.
You know, and then we start getting, there's Biff and there's Griff and there's old Biff and there's smarmy 85 Biff. So we get down the different layers. It almost turns into Insurgents. What was it called? The movie with Christopher Nolan. Inception. Yeah.
Yeah,
we start getting the Inception part of things here, but let's talk about when it really starts to kick in.
Yeah, because so this is when Marty finds the almanac in a store that sells old school oddities and antiques. Like, if you like the 1980s, here's a dustbuster. And even in the window, you see there's a doll of Who Framed Roger Rabbit, another Zemeckis film that came right before this one. And even I do want to point this out. In 2015, there's the mall itself. They make the clock tower from the original 1985 movie. They make it the mall, and the logo of the mall is a bolt of lightning striking a clock, which I always thought was cool. It's like a small little detail you have to find. But he finds his almanac and he says, hey, what's wrong with making a few bucks? You know, and Doc is like, that's not why I invented time travel.
Right.
I invented time travel to go through time and travel through time and answer the question why. So anyway, Marty buys the book and they throw it away, but old Biff sees it and he goes, so Doc Brown invented a time machine. He puts it all together and figures out how to travel back into the past, give him younger self a version of the almanac, and then come back without Doc and Marty knowing, because he can come back right to the same time. But this is a big contention amongst the Back to the Future fan base, is that scene with old Biff. In a deleted scene, he disappears. Old Biff disappears completely when he comes back to 2015. In the movie version, he just looks like he went through hell and he's haggard and he's sweaty and he breaks his cane trying to get out. And it's never really shown why. I guess the audience is supposed to assume like he's an older guy and time travel can really take it out of you. Although we've never seen that with Doc and Marty before. But what ends up happening is when that scene continues, he disappears in the similar way that Marty's hand started to disappear in Back to the Future Part 1, showing the effects of time travel. And what we're told by the official Back to the Future website and Bob Gale is that he disappears because Lorraine shot him somewhere in the 90s and kills him in an alternate version of events. And that's why he disappears. But it's the almanac. When they come back, they realize something's not right in this 1985.
And there's also a little addition to the end of 1, which is the beginning of 2, is when the DeLorean is something with your kids, Marty, let's go. And they take off in the DeLorean. Biff, the
85 Biff, the wax your car Biff.
Yeah, the car shining Biff sees this.
Yeah.
And that caused a little bit of problems among hardcore fans as well, right?
Yeah, what the hell is going on here? Is what he said.
Yeah. So once again, you get car waxing Biff, you get Griff, you get old man Biff, and you get rich mogul evil Biff.
Yes.
That's four versions of the same character played by the same guy in the same movie.
Well, but then you go back to at the end of the movie, 1955, where he's young Biff again.
So five Biffs.
5 Biffs in one movie. And what I will say is when they go into the alternate 1985, Marty realizes someone else is in his bed. I don't remember bars being on these windows and all those things.
Yeah.
He realizes something is terribly wrong. And they enter what's affectionately known as the Biff horrific era, the 1985, where Biff becomes the most powerful man in the world because he's the luckiest man alive because he knows all the results of all the sports games.
Yeah. And that's, of course, when we get there and it's kind of like this hellish Atlantic City. I think Trump Towers in the 80s was a thing, right? Just a thing. So it's a very Trump Towers type of vibe. And this is where, like you said, Biff has taken the sports book and become a billionaire, whatever, multi-millionaire from always knowing the scores because he's the luckiest man alive. But he's also married Lorraine, who's now got massive boobs from a boob job, which once again, 1989, not a very common procedure.
Yeah. It's and they replay the movie, the scene from the first movie where Marty wakes up because he thinks he's dreaming.
Right.
Mom, is that you? You're so big. He doesn't know what to say. Yeah, and that version of Biff is like inspired by Trump in the 80s. Just kind of with the hair.
Yeah.
He's the billionaire. He's the casino owner. This was kind of what we thought of Trump back then, pre-politics and all that. So he definitely was inspired by that. And this version of Biff, we find out is a murderer. He kills George McFly so he can get Lorraine. He was with Marilyn Monroe in one of the pictures. That wasn't good enough for him because when you're the richest man in the world, what do you want? You want the girl that got away in high school, the one that always rejected you. That's who you want to go after.
Well, once again, like you said, the movie, and that's another thing I was just watching this thinking, now, like you mentioned, there's a whole other layer because not only Biff's a murderer, and now he's shooting at Marty and they're chasing each other. And then Marty's on top of the building and Biff tells him to, just jump off the building. It'll be easier that way. And Marty jumps and then Doc is right there and he's on top of the DeLorean and they fly away. And it's like, that's like out of a Schwarzenegger movie or something like that.
It was a very 1980s action moment.
Yeah.
Go ahead and jump. A suicide will be nice and clean, and they're going to match the bullet to that gun. They couldn't match the bullet that killed your old man. Like they're making him like the worst human being alive. He really took a step up from the first movie where he's a sexual deviant bully in Hill Valley High School. And this one, he is a murderous, owns a toxic waste company, a casino, all kinds of stuff, has the police in him. And I love when Marty's walking through the town square. They're playing I Just Can't Drive 55 with Sammy Hagar. And it's like this, biker gangs are going. And then, though, this is where I think the genius of the film was. Okay, so you give us this pretty version of the future. Marty screws up again. He does something that's going to alter not only his timeline, but it looks like everybody's timeline. They go back to 1985. Biff's the most powerful man in the world. He finds out because it's the almanac, which I also love that scene too, because they're sitting there talking about the almanac and Marty is like, oh, isn't that the day of the famous Hill Valley lightning storm? And Biff in a moment is like, your history. That's good. I'm like, why was he impressed that Marty knew his history? I don't understand that character beat for him. But anyway, that's when they find out Biff gave young Biff the almanac the very same day Marty goes back to the future in the original movie. And that is to me, a stroke of genius to go hey, what if we go back into the first movie that everybody loves and let's look at it from a different angle.
Right.
And we already have this tension built up because everybody knows what happens at the end of Back to the Future. Now we can kind of mess with that. Is he going to make it? Now there's 2 Martys, there's 2 Docs there at the same time. It does add a lot more layers to the film.
And I just found, and you're right about that. And it was just stuck in my head. It was Crazy Drunk Driver in 1 and Crazy Drunk Pedestrian.
Oh, Crazy Drunk Pedestrian, yeah.
Avoiding your unfinished home projects because you're not sure where to start? Thumbtack knows homes, so you don't have to. Don't know the difference between matte paint finish and satin? Or what that clunking sound from your dryer is? With Thumbtack, you don't have to be a home pro. You just have to hire one. You can hire top-rated pros, see price estimates, and read reviews, all on the app. Download today.
So now Marty escapes back to 55 to try and take the sports book away from young Biff.
Right. And so they end up back into the first movie, and that's where Doc's like, there are now two of me here, there are two of you here. And they set up earlier in the film, we can't run into our other selves because that will be a paradox to where the entire space-time continuum can completely unravel. Right. So they put the stakes pretty high. And when they go into the first movie in 55, I feel like there's such a satisfying part of this film. And that's really where you go through the lightness again of the 2015. You go real dark with 85, the alternate 1985, the Biff horrific. And then to be able to go into that first movie, again, other movies have done it, like even the Avengers film Endgame, where they have time travel and they reference Back to the Future several times in the movie and say, you can't just go back in the past and change the future, but that's kind of exactly what they do in Endgame. Even though they said that doesn't work that way. But it's just so fascinating to be able to look at these iconic scenes from a different point of view, where you see Michael J. Fox playing Johnny B. Good on the stage, but now you're seeing it from the side because other Marty is there watching him play, and he goes, oh, he's doing pretty good.
That's a really a mind bender because, we've seen many time travel movies and that sort of thing, but you go back to 89, I don't know if I'd seen anything like this before. And especially you really have to pay attention. This is not a movie, if you're seeing it for the first time, that you can take it and mess around on your phone while you're watching. You got to pay attention to this. And I really thought that, man, how much of the first did they have to refilm and how much were they able to use? Because now you have to film what's going on in the first movie of Marty playing, for example, Johnny B. Good, so that we can see Marty climbing on the rafters on top of him to drop the sandbags to take out the bullies, and it's all going on. So, did they have to refilm all of that?
Yeah. The majority of the movie, other than the clock tower scene where Christopher Lloyd jumps down and they have the lightning strike the clock tower. Right. That scene is actually used, the exact scene, in each of the Back to the Future movies. But even going back to the end of Back to the Future 1, they had to reshoot it for the open of Back to the Future 2, not just to get the Biff coverage, because Elizabeth Shue is new, right? And they can't use Jennifer Parker, so or Claudia Wells is Jennifer Parker, so they had to reshoot that. Everything that is seen from a different angle, they had to reshoot it. So the set designers had to rebuild all the sets from Back to the Future Part 1, just like they were. Wear the same clothes, shoot it just in the same way, and to be able to do that had to be so mind-numbing and painstaking from a production standpoint to be able to pull off. And this movie was innovative in several different ways. Even when it comes to the production, we were talking about how Michael J. Fox played 3 versions of himself in the same scene, and how in this 55, we see old man Biff and young Biff in the car together. ILM was tasked to make a specific camera to be able to put the same actor in a composite shot together. That wasn't done before Back to the Future Part 2. So just as Temple of Doom gave us the PG-13 rating, Back to the Future 2 gave us the camera that gave us the ability to put the same actor in the same scene playing different characters.
I was just looking, the budget for this was $40 million. A
lot of money.
Which in today's money is $100 million.
Yeah.
So that's a Marvel Avengers budget for Back to the Future 2. Now, once again, we knew it was going to be big, but they're having to restart from scratch in so many ways on this. That's something that I was very impressed by. They kind of had 2 plates spinning at the same time of what Marty was doing, both new material and stuff that we've seen already.
At the same time they're doing this movie, they are filming the 3rd movie. This is a back-to-back scenario. This isn't like, hey, we're going to film Back to the Future 2, and then a year from now we're going to do 3. No, this was an 11-month shoot.
Right.
Entire year, essentially, of shooting Back to the Future Part 2 and then going right into 3. So as Zemeckis and the crew are shooting the second movie. They're scouting locations for the third movie. They're trying to make sure that there's little plot points that they insert in Back to the Future 2 that can pay off in Back to the Future 3. That's why they gave Marty the character arc of not loving being called chicken, and he can't be called a scaredy cat, because they wanted to be able to pay that off somewhere in the third film. That's why Doc Brown, if you look real close in Back to the Future 2, he's wearing a shirt that has horses and trains on it, like setting up that he's going to be in the West. And he always say, I always wanted to go to the old West. Or I remember when, all of this was just, the old Peabody stuff, right? So they were always trying to constantly also set up things that are going to pay off in the next movie, which I think is super hard to juggle. You're juggling 3 different timelines, an alternate timeline, plus you're trying to set the railroad track quite literally for the next film at the same time. I mean, it is really an achievement in cinema that they're able to even pull this off. And you're right. If you look away for a minute, you're going to be confused by this movie. You're going to be like, what is happening? How are they here? What is going on? I'm not exactly sure. But somehow they pull it off by the end.
I also love the swerve where Marty takes the sports book and then he finally gets it to wherever he, Doc Brown, whatever, and it ends up being like a skin magazine.
Ooh la la. Ooh la la.
There's not enough of those kind of wacky teenager things that were so, we love those things. Let's talk about kind of the grand finale of it and how Marty, of course, saves the day. The tunnel scene was really well done. It's a really great piece of special effects where Marty's on the hoverboard, Biff is in the car. It's so funny too, because it's 1955, right? And this guy's hovering around him, and it's like Biff must probably think, what is this guy? Like, who are you?
That scene actually has a whole lot of tension in it, because Biff, again, Tom Wilson, I know we keep going back to him, but he is so physically imposing in the movie.
Yeah.
Like, he looks like he's a big guy.
Yeah.
Like he's a threat at all times. There's not one time where, even though he might be like, maybe his elevator doesn't reach the top floor all the time, but you never doubt him in the film. He's a menace, and he feels like a problem at all times in the film. And so when they have that kind of climax where Marty finally gets the almanac, it was a really satisfying ending for this movie that is also, like I said, a setup. And then you get to see like the little changes of George McFly goes from George McFly murdered to George McFly honored in the newspaper. I think it goes from Doc Brown committed, because he's in a straitjacket.
Right, yeah.
It goes from Doc Brown committed to Doc Brown commended.
Commended, yeah.
And I think that the Biffco nuclear waste turns into Biffco auto detailing on the matchbook.
Yeah.
So they correct the timeline.
And Marty gets one too. I can't remember what his was, but committed to commended, and Marty's was something to something was a very similar word switch as well.
Yeah. I'm trying to think of it off the top of my head, and then they set up in the third movie where, here lies Clint Eastwood, on the tombstone. But the ending is great. And here's what's cool too, is in the same way that Back to the Future 1 had this great cliffhanger, Back to the Future 2, we finally succeed. We save the day. We destroy the almanac.
Mm-hmm.
Everything is right in the world again. And Doc Brown, they set up earlier in the movie that he already wants to get rid of the time machine. The time circuits aren't working properly. He's like, damn, got to fix that thing. And then it gets struck by lightning. Right as Michael J. Fox says, you don't want to get struck by lightning. Bam. He gets struck by lightning, and we know what the lightning can do to the flux capacitor. It's going to send it back into whatever the time circuits say, and that's where he disappears. And we think maybe Doc is dead until the Western Union man comes, right? I mean, which is a really interesting way to end that movie, is Marty gets a letter from Doc saying, I'm in the old West and Western Union. Do you really believe, like, look, Chris, I have like sent something to my brother from Texas to California and it doesn't get there. Yeah. This guy holds on to an envelope for 70 years and it doesn't get lost.
Yeah, it's been a topic of conversation for 70 years. At 12:59 p.m. on this date, show up at this billboard. And the best part of all, in the most random of casting as well, being a Canadian and a huge SCTV fanatic, my whole preteen and teen life, the moment Joe Flaherty walks on screen as the Western Union guy, I'm like, once again, first of all, why did Joe get this part, and why is it just 5 lines? Like, the guy's the funniest guy. He obviously wasn't a big star, but to me he was. I was like, it's like the most smallest part. Him and Flea need their own sequels.
Yeah, you know what? Let's do Back to the Future 4 with Flea, Joe Flaherty, and Elizabeth Shue. And then like they could actually have their characters pay off in a meaningful way. I guess, Chris, when you think about it, in 89, this is, such a huge sequel. Hey, do you want to be a part of the sequel to the biggest movie of 1985? We only have a little role for you, but it's like, hell yeah, give it to me. It's like, would you rather be on the WrestleMania card or not?
Right.
If I'm a work the dark battle royal, I'd rather be on the card than not in the card. So maybe that was the Western Union for him. But and that's where Marty learns he's got to go back to 55. But this is a great ending because you finally get to see the 55 Doc. He sends Marty back to the future in the first movie, and you see the tire trails.
Yeah.
And that's where it cuts off in the first movie. In the second movie, you see the tire trails, and then you see Marty McFly dressed conspicuously in his fedora and leather jacket running down the fire trails. And that's when he says, Doc, you gotta, I'm back. I'm back from the future, is what he said. And that was a great.
And that's the interesting thing is that, like you mentioned, the first one, they ended it with not knowing there's going to be a sequel. And the second one, they ended it knowing that there's going to be one and they're filming it. It's interesting because they actually even end the movie. I'm not sure if I've seen this before either, with a trailer for the next movie. They had filmed enough of the third film to be able to cut together like a preview for the third film after the second one was over.
Yeah, it said to be concluded, and then it showed you, some of the horse racing. I think Marty dressed in his strange 1885 regalia that Doc put him in.
Yeah.
And the thing is, too, when you think about it, Back to the Future 2 came out in November of 1989, and Back to the Future 3 came out in May of 1990. So just 6 months between each other.
Wow.
They released these films, which I think in hindsight probably wasn't the best thing, because if you look at the box office, that kind of diminished movie over movie. And by the time you got to the third one, I think domestically or worldwide didn't even crack 100 million.
Really?
Yeah. And you would think it was some huge success, but I don't even think it cracked 100 million in its original release worldwide. So there was a bit of a law of diminishing returns. Now, let me ask you this, because I'm somebody who, obviously, I love all 3 of these movies, but the third movie, and again, it's maybe because I'm a Texan, we love our Westerns. I love the third movie. I think it's actually more similar to the first movie than even the sequel is. Do you have a preference over Back to the Future 2 or 3?
Well, let me put it this way. I think the biggest problem with 3, and just so you know, the way it stands now was 388 million, 350, and down to 240.
Okay, so that's what it did.
So
okay,
maybe it cracked 100 million in the States and worldwide or whatever. I was going to watch 3 the moment I finished 2, but I don't know. Like, to me, the Western almost seems a little cliched to where, do I really want to see these guys in the Western times? Now, I remember I liked it, but I have to make a point of watching it. Like, I knew I was going to be talking to you, and my original plan was to talk about 2 and 3, but then I thought, well, let's leave 3. We can do another show on it. And plus, I don't feel like watching 3 right now.
See, I like 3. And I have a problem. Like, I can watch Back to the Future 1 by itself.
Right.
No problem all the time. But if I watch 2, I have to watch 3 immediately, because the way it sets it up is like, I want that to be paid off for me immediately. And I like 3. And whenever we get to that one, there's a lot that you can talk about in that West, because a lot of people think it's where, it jumped the shark. And I don't agree with that. 2 is so interesting because it's dark. And I think that's what gives it a benefit to it. And Biff marrying Lorraine and killing George and all the things that this movie could have been, I feel like they did a really good job of landing the plane.
Yeah.
As you said, the first 20 minutes, you're like, where are we going with this? I don't know. This seems a little bit cringe, to use your terminology.
Yeah.
But then by the end of it, they successfully land this DeLorean. Let me say that. They land the DeLorean quite easily, in my opinion, because I don't know what else they could have done. Like, how do you go bigger? Okay, look, Vince does WrestleMania, right? It's this huge success. And then he does, how can I go bigger with 2? I'm going to do it in 3 locations, LA, New York, Chicago, or whatever it was, right?
Yeah.
This one is like the WrestleMania 2. It's like, let's go into the past, present, future, let's jump all over the place. Let's give you different versions of all these characters. Let's show you Marty as an older man, like we showed his parents in the first movie. So they really try to go huge with it. And sometimes when movies go huge and go too much, they're not as successful and they don't have that same satisfaction. To me, I always compare like the first 3 seasons of Seinfeld are a completely different show than the last 3 seasons of Seinfeld. Because by the last 3 seasons, it's really kind of zany. It's a little bit goofy. It's where you have like the Kenny Rogers chicken restaurant episodes and those things. Whereas the first 3 seasons are so small. They're like, oh, I got fired from my job, but I didn't really want to get fired. I'm just going to show up on Monday like nothing ever happened.
Yeah, right.
That's a small story as opposed to Kramer can't get any sleep because of the Kenny Rogers chicken sign. And I think it's similar to a lot of franchises. When they get money, sometimes they go too much. I think Back to the Future, although they went huge with this movie, they did find a way to still keep it within that small Hill Valley square. And we didn't feel like the universe was at stake, really. We just were worried about, is Marty going to get through this?
I'm done with subscriptions. Streaming, fitness, razors, vitamins. I've got subscriptions for everything in my life. They lock you in, and half the time, I can't figure out how to unsubscribe. That's why I'm so excited about the new Blue Apron. Now you can get delicious meals delivered with no subscription needed, including new pre-made options. Keep the flavor, ditch the subscription. Get 20% off your first 2 orders with code APRON20. Terms and conditions apply. Visit blueapron.com/terms for more.
If you go to Rotten Tomatoes, that 1 was 93%, 2 was 64, and 3 was 79. So 3 does have better reviews than 2.
Okay.
We understand show business, and this was a big money-making franchise. So they're going to do a 2 and 3. They had to go somewhere else. Like the Wild West makes perfect sense because what else? You can't go back to 55 or 15.
Yeah.
You're going to go back to prehistoric times. It's kind of like Yellowstone where they went back to
1883 and then 1923. And
what are they going to do? What, Yellowstone in the 60s? Like Yellowstone a go-go? Like what more are you going to do, right? So I think, once again, I know what you're saying about 3. And I think that it is worthy of a watch, which we will watch. And I think it was a smart move on their part to do it that way. Because like we said, 2 is, man, they went for it. And it's, like when I say it's batshit crazy, I say that in a great way. Because it is. I bet you when they were reading the script, I was thinking, I bet if I'm, Michael J. Fox reading this, I'm going to have to stop a couple times. Or if I'm Thomas F. Wilson going like back up to a few pages, 10, and like, what are we doing here? What is this?
Yeah, I think that this is probably one of those movies to where you're going up to the director and going, okay, give it to me again. What am I doing here? Like, what is happening?
Yeah. The fact that they were all able to pull this off, because even Leah Thompson, I've known Leah since 2005 as well, and I've never had her on Talk as Jericho, which I would love to have just to discuss this as well. But she plays young Lorraine, old Lorraine, the horrific Lorraine, scared Lorraine when Needles fires Marty. Like it's just very... there's a lot of range from our actors that they might not have even known about when they signed up for Back to the Future 1.
Oh yeah, no way, right? No way, because even for Leah Thompson, like going into the 3rd movie, she's an Irish woman. All of a sudden, she has to pull out an Irish accent, and Michael J. Fox having to stretch his comedy muscles too, and playing multiple versions of himself. And I will say, the 2015 family scene, although I will say that's not my favorite scene in the film by any stretch, because I do feel like it's a little bit sketch comedy style thing. But even to be able to pull that off in 89 to where there's not a moment you don't question that that's a family and that it's not the same person. This is before Eddie Murphy did Nutty Professor.
Good call. Yeah, exactly.
Everybody's in the scene and you don't question it at all. What's actually funny is they had a specific camera ILM helped design for that. And they actually had to super glue things to the set, like cups and trays and little things so that nothing would move. Because if they shot the scene and something moved, all the continuity screwed up of the camera.
Wow.
And one night, the night before a big scene, there was an earthquake in California. And they were worried that everything would get rattled around. But thankfully, they looked over it. Nothing moved that they could tell. They were safe in that one. But there's a lot of, I just can imagine, production headaches on this film. There's got to be a ton. Whereas the Old West, it's more simple. In the first movie, it's more simple. It's just all in the 55 Hill Valley.
Yeah.
This is all in 85 Hill Valley, where it's, they actually shot in Monument Valley.
1885.
In 1885.
Yeah.
And in this one, they're all over the place, and they're recreating sets, and they're destroying sets to make them look like the alternate 1985 and souping them up for 2015. And I mean, I can't imagine all the production headaches that they went through, and even creating the hoverboards. But the hoverboards were so convincing, people actually thought they were a real thing. They thought you could go buy a hoverboard. And there was a lot of logistical nightmares with that, and getting that big hoverboard chase across the water that they do in 2015. And a stunt woman really got hurt doing that, and, ended up not doing too well. And, there's just so much that goes into this particular movie. And I don't think that if they had the ability to remake the trilogy, I don't think that they would be as ambitious in the sequel, because it is a lot to juggle for the viewer.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I was just going to say too, I was reading that with the skateboarding, that Michael J. Fox wasn't doing very well skateboarding. They're like, oh, you forgot how to skateboard in 4 years. And then you find out later, those are kind of the first symptoms of his Parkinson's.
Yeah. He started, and he's got a book coming out later this year about this whole time in his life. But, I think his father passed away while he was making this movie, got married to his wife. They had their first child, like all within the time of Back to the Future 2 and 3. And then toward the end of that movie, that's when he starts to find out about Parkinson's, because I think he got diagnosed when he was 29 years old, which is very young for that disease in general, very young overall. What a crazy time it was in his life to be able to have all that happen at once.
Same time. As we start to wind down, Brad, I mean, is this one of the most ambitious movies ever made? Like, I'm thinking like Ben-Hur and these movies that had like thousands of extras, or, Terminator 2, where they had the special effects that had never been seen. This has to be up there with those types of movies.
I think that it is, especially more along the lines of a T2 in the way that they did it, to where it was such a grand vision. And I think that only somebody like Zemeckis, or even a Spielberg, who was a producer on the film, you have to have this grand imagination to be able to figure this story out in your head first and be able to execute it. And going into 4 different time periods that we see, having alternate versions of your lead actors, trying to still make this story feel grounded and not too fantastical, because they could have definitely gone too fantastical with this one. The first movie works so well because it's, what if you went to high school with your parents? What would that have been like? It's an easy hook.
Yeah.
What is the hook for the second movie? Like, you don't really have that one. It's just the continuing adventures of Marty and Doc and what happened with his kids. It's not the same grounded hook that the first movie had, but they still find a way to make it work. And I think that it not only relies on, obviously, what the first film does, but if it's not Marty McFly as Michael J. Fox, and if it's not Christopher Lloyd as Doc Brown, you really wouldn't care about this story. You care about the story because you like them so much in the role. Any other actor, any other plot, it wouldn't have worked. So yeah, ambitious, had to create new special effects for it, had to create new cameras for it, had to recreate sets for it, had to give people a sequel to the #1 movie of 1985, give it a satisfying way, saying, hey, we know we made you wait 4 years for this big movie, and to come out in 89, when so many other films were coming out. You're talking about, this is the Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. This is Batman. This is Christmas Vacation. This is Karate Kid 3. This is License to Kill. This is so many movies came out in 1989, Major League. And to be in that crowded field and still stand the test of time, no pun intended, definitely shows that it was ambitious and that they achieved the goal of making a great Back to the Future sequel.
Last few things, I was just kind of looking at the career of Thomas F. Wilson. And like I said, I was very impressed with his performance. And I think a Best Supporting Actor could have gone to him from a nomination. He's had a very successful career. He's been a working actor for the last 40 years. Lots of voice actor credits, lots of credits. I still feel, after I saw him in 2, that he's a little bit underrated and untapped. Do you have any idea why that might be?
It's funny, we were talking about Seinfeld a second ago, and it's almost like a Jason Alexander kind of thing, right? He's so talented as George. Like, he's so good and funny. And it's like, how come they never were able to find another vehicle for Jason Alexander in the same way that Julia Louis-Dreyfus did? And Michael Richards obviously never had that success either, but Jerry went on to do other things. And I think that in a similar way, Tom Wilson, I think, is the best actor in this trilogy.
Yeah.
I think he can deliver the funniest lines. He's good at physical comedy. He's good at playing a step behind everybody. He's good at thinking that he's a step ahead of everybody and being able to portray that on screen.
Yeah.
He's physically imposing. Like, he is so good. And he was a handsome guy back in 55 too.
Yeah.
You could have seen him go off and do more. And I just don't know if he was so, I hate to use the word typecast, as Biff from Back to the Future. That's the first thing you think of when you see him in anything. Oh, look, it's Biff. It's Biff.
Yeah.
Oh, it's Biff.
Yeah.
Whereas Michael J. Fox was able to shake Marty McFly a little bit, especially when he got to do Spin City and do some other things, and Doc Hollywood and things of that nature. Chris Lloyd went on to do The Addams Family, and he was Jim Ignatowski before Doc Brown. He was, Judge Doom in Who Framed Roger Rabbit. He went on to do a lot more stuff. Tom Wilson was just always Biff. He just always was Biff. And I think maybe that held him back some, but he is a super talented guy. And like you said, has had a great career for himself.
Yeah.
Without that, he's still a working actor, and he's an artist, and he does so many things. But I think that he's the unsung hero of the entire trilogy.
Agreed. And if anybody hasn't seen 2 in a while, go back and watch it to see just the tour de force in acting. Last question for you, Brad. What's your favorite scene in this? Is there one that stands out for you? My favorite one is when Marty goes to the Pleasure Palace, which is like the Trump Towers, and he confronts Biff, and I'm like, Biff is so evil, and I was thinking to myself, and suddenly I probably knew this, but I was like, well, he's going to walk in there, like, the only thing that could be more evil is if he's sitting surrounded by pretty girls and kind of being evil. And once again, he is in a hot tub, even more so. He's in the hot tub with the girls, and then tells them to split when he mentions the sports almanac. And I'm like, he's just dripping like sleazy guy. The most cliched version of it, but just kills it for sure.
So I will say I love that scene, and really mine's a Biff one too, but it doesn't necessarily have Tom Wilson right in it, is when we get the kind of montage of Biff Tannen and how he became Hill Valley's favorite son. And he shows him in Marilyn Monroe and through the years of his love life. And he's the luckiest man alive, and it's the history, because he has like a museum.
The newsreel,
yeah, it's like a big newsreel. I just enjoy that. And I love that Billy Zane, again, you want to talk about just a random actor in the movie. Yeah. Billy Zane's just a background player. Elijah Wood is in this movie as a kid. He's the kid in the Cafe 80s. This is before Frodo and all of his success. So there are a few random actors just in this movie. This is Billy Zane again before Titanic or The Phantom, which I loved him in. But I love that scene in particular, and I like seeing the first Marty going through the future and just seeing the little inventions that they would come up with, paying with things through your thumbprint. And that guy who was the thumb $100 to save the clock tower is the guy who plays the voice of Roger Rabbit in the 88 movie. So there's a whole bunch of small little parts in there for these people.
Well, dude, great talking to you about one of the most ambitious and definitely one of the most unique movies ever made that works after where you watch it. But now we have to do a part 3 at some point. So when I'm ready to watch it, I'll check it out. But you are the expert of all experts, man. So we need to think of some other topics to continue on once we're done with 3.
Yeah, man, I'll definitely shoot you some ideas. And 3 will make me an official member of the 5 Timers Club. So Paul Stanley, Bruce Dickinson, make some room on the mantle because my bust is being made now.
I'll get you a green jacket with adjustable sleeves.
There we go. Auto fit, man.
Thanks, man.
Thanks, Chris.
Thing doesn't fit.
I'm adjusting fit.
Pull out your pants pockets. All kids in the future wear their pants inside out. Put on this cap. Perfect. You're the spitting image of your future son.
You know how fast NFL game days move. One big play and everything changes. That's why live betting on FanDuel is a game changer. With FanDuel, you can bet in real time while the game unfolds. Score just flipped? Jump on a new spread or live money line. That wide receiver's heating up? Bet the next touchdown scorer or total yards. Think that drive stalls in the red zone? Take a live field goal prop or fade the total. Live player props, team totals, drive results, updated spreads, next play markets, it's all there. It's fast, it's fun, and with FanDuel, your live bets move as quickly as the game does. So whether you're riding momentum or fading the hype, FanDuel puts you right in the middle of every moment. Visit FanDuel.com/sportsfan to download the app and bet the NFL live all season long. Must be 21 plus and present in Colorado. First online real money wager only. $5 first deposit required. Bonus issued as non-withdrawable bonus bets that expire 7 days after receipt. Restrictions apply. See terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-522-4700.
If you're an HVAC technician and a call comes in, Grainger knows that you need a partner that helps you find the right product, fast and hassle-free. And you know that when the first problem of the day is a clanking blower motor, there's no need to break a sweat. With Grainger's easy-to-use website and product details, you're confident you'll soon have everything humming right along. Call 1-800-GRAINGER, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.